Okay, episode 325, long-term care insurance, do you really need it? I felt like I needed to circle back around to this after last week's show, the 324, which was called Retirement Dashboard, because in that show, I talked a little bit about asset-based long-term care. I talked about the fact that I own long-term care insurance and that I don't like long-term care insurance. But can I just tell you that financial planning has nothing to do with whether or not you like it or you don't, right? We don't make emotional decisions about this. We've got to make decisions based on what's going to be in your best interest, what's going to serve you the best. And so regardless of whether or not you like or dislike insurance should really have nothing to do with whether you own it. Like I said, I personally own long-term care insurance, but I dislike paying for it just because I don't like paying really any of my insurances until, of course, the time comes when you need it. So I wanted to share with you Chapter 8 from my book, which is titled Long-Term Care Insurance, Do You Really Need It? Because I really put a lot of thought into this chapter. And some of you haven't read the book, so I just want to give you a more thorough understanding, a more thorough overview of long-term care insurance. So here we go. I never want to be a burden to my children, either physically or financially. We hear this kind of statement over and over again. But when we bring up the topic of long-term care insurance, most people don't think they will ever need it. Those who do think they'll need it want to sit down with a planner and talk about the best way to plan for this potential event. Unfortunately, what they usually do is sit down with an insurance salesperson whose only goal is to sell a policy, regardless of whether or not the right one for the individual person's situation. So how do you plan for long-term care, and should you consider long-term care insurance? Well, what's your risk? A study by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says people who reach age 65 will have a 52% chance of entering a nursing home. About 10% of the people who enter a nursing home will stay there 5 years or more. Even with these staggering statistics, most people don't believe this situation will ever happen to them. They argue that their parents never needed care, they eat well, they exercise regularly, and they are absolutely opposed to the idea they could ever lose their independence. Frankly, who can blame them? If you woke up every morning thinking your future existence might be one of dependence and ill health, why would you want to get out of bed? What are the costs of care? Below are the national medians for home care, assisted living, and nursing homes taken from the Genworth 2017 Cost of Care Survey. Home health aides, $4,099 per month, $49,188 per year. Assisted living, $3,750 per month, $45,000 per year. Nursing home, $8,121 per month, $97,452 per year. Keep in mind that these numbers are as of 2017. Most of the people who are looking into this type of planning may not need care for 15 to 25 more years. So if the cost today is $8,121 per month, then the cost of care in 30 years will probably be closer to $19,138 per month, assuming 3% inflation. You would have to come up with an additional $236,542 in annual income for 2.8 years to cover this amount. Long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance, LTC insurance, is expensive, although less so if you purchase it while you're still young. And I believe that everyone should consider it. Early in my career, I was afraid to tell people they really needed to buy long-term care insurance. Sometimes life changes your opinions. I am now a very passionate advocate for long-term care insurance. A good friend of mine, who was 60 years old at the time, was driving his car when his driving became rather erratic. Some people called 911 to report a possible drunk driver. When the highway patrol arrived, they found my friend pulled off to the side of the road. He had had a massive stroke. He has been on the road to recovery for several years and is now doing fairly well. However, he lost most of his ability to move the right side of his body, and he has not regained his ability to speak yet. This friend had been in great health. He had been a vegetarian for more than 30 years. He worked out and meditated 3 days per week. He was the last person I would have ever thought would need long-term care. And because of his health, I never suggested or recommended he consider long-term care insurance. A few years ago, a couple came to see me whom I asked whether they had long-term care insurance. They did not. I lightly suggested they consider looking into it. 2 years went by, but they never followed up on getting any. Today, his wife has dementia, and they're paying a lot of money out of their retirement savings to help provide in-home care for her. Unfortunately, when you specialize in working with retirees, you come across long-term care issues often. Because of these experiences, I have become a firm believer in long-term care insurance. Some people are under the impression that they don't need to buy insurance. Their reasons are as follows. The government will take care of me. My parents never needed long-term care. If I need care, my kids can take care of me. I exercise and eat right, so I will never need long-term care. Long-term care insurance is too expensive. I will never go to a nursing home. I want to stay in my own home. I have enough money, so I will self-insure against this risk. Let's take a closer look at these reasons. The government will take care of me. A couple of years back, I read a report that Washington State's single biggest expense was the Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS. It was the first year that DSHS surpassed education as our state's biggest expense. DSHS and Medicaid is the federal and state welfare system that can help people pay for care. Remember, this system is welfare, so you need to qualify based on your health and your finances. Your health has to be very bad, and your money has to be pretty much gone before you can qualify for this program. Some exceptions exist to this rule, so if you hire the right attorney, you might get around the rules. Personally, I have ethical issues with that type of planning. Many people feel they are entitled to a government handout and will do anything possible to tweak the system so that the burden of responsibility is shifted from the individual to the taxpayer. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad we have a safety net for those who need it, but it's not okay for people to abuse the system. If you are healthy and can afford insurance premiums, then please consider purchasing a good old-fashioned private long-term care policy. I am of the opinion that you should always hope for the best, but plan for the worst. My parents never needed long-term care. Insurance companies are in business to make a profit. They are not going to offer insurance to people who already require care. They are not going to offer insurance to people who are likely to need care. Insurance companies have developed very sophisticated systems for evaluating your health and the risk of you needing care. They check your medical records and review all of the prescription medications you take. They do in-home health screening and phone interviews to check your cognitive ability. They're going to scrutinize your health thoroughly, and then they will only accept the healthiest people to reduce their risk of paying claims. Insurance companies are very smart at reducing their exposure to this risk. However, whether or not your parents needed LTC is not a major factor in evaluating you for risk. When you apply for life insurance, the companies want to know all about the life expectancy of your mom and dad, brothers and sisters. In life insurance, there's a direct correlation between life expectancy and your heritage, but not with long-term care insurance. So maybe your folks needed care or maybe they didn't. Either way, that is generally not relevant to whether or not you may someday need it. If I need care, my kids can take care of me. Some people have children who are registered nurses and doctors, and they have an extra home on their property, so they plan for mom and dad to move in if they ever needed care. Heck, why not? They love their parents. They have the caregiving expertise and a special home on their property just for this need. But that's not the case for most of us. In fact, most of us have a romanticized view of growing old. You may even be thinking, when I get old, I hope I can move in with my kids and spend my time playing with the grandkids, helping out with the dishes, and reading and gardening to my heart's content. But what happens when your health starts to fail? Do you really want to place a caregiving burden on your family? Do you want your children to have to bathe you? Do you want your kids to help clean up after you go to the bathroom? Or worse, do you want them to have to clean up the sheets because you weren't able to make it to the bathroom?